Geometry can come into SpaceClaim from many different systems. CMM is a great way to bring geometry into SpaceClaim, and it can come in as solids, surfaces, or it can actually come in as curves. If it comes in as solids, we can immediately start to pull and work with and change our model. So if we're starting to build a new design based on the geometry that's there, simply pulling the faces allows us to make changes to the models. And the best thing about this is we can also precisely dimension it. At any time in SpaceClaim, you can add precise ruler dimensions and type in exact sizes. So if we took this and we see that the distance from the face to a cylinder is 3.5 inches or 0.35 inches, we can type that in. And in fact, we can also add rounds to our edges, some of the detail that might be harder to gain from the machine. We can round 2 edges at a time, we can add them to a precise size, or type in an exact value. If these should be a quarter or an eighth of an inch, we could type that in. And same with our more complicated edges. Just pull them to whatever size you want, or type in an exact change. But another thing we might want to do is work with our curve data that comes in. Here we have a lot of curves, and you can see how it's taking these approximations and making lines between them. If I were to go through and select on all these curves, you'll notice that I have almost 15,000 curves in my design. Now what I want to do is I want to actually simplify this for my modeling. And we can do this a number of different ways. One great way to do this is simply by selecting and sketching and snapping to that CMM data. So if I'm in 3D, I can actually snap and sketch a spline along the path. So I can easily generate a more simplified version of this surface or of this curve. So I'm just snapping as many points as I need to this line. Now you'll see that instead of having all of these curves here, I have one curve that represents it. So I'm going to go ahead and select on all the unwanted curves. Let's unselect our actual model. And so I'm going to delete almost 5,000 curves. And now we have our nice simplified curve that we could use for machining. I can also fill the area in between it to generate a surface, which I can pull, extrude, pull into a solid, or snap this up to the geometry or curves that are there if we want to give it a precise height on the model. But now let's take our design, now that we've built this solid, we actually want to cut away the gear tooth in the middle of it. Let's look at a few other ways we can clean up this data. Notice here, the curves aren't as drastically bad. I mean, they're still not all located on the same plane in space, but they're not quite as dirty as some of these curves around the edges. So first, let's delete some of these curves up here. I'm just going to select them and delete them from my model. So we're working on just our gear model below. Now instead of sketching over this, what I might want to do, because these are a little bit nicer, is actually use our repair tools to fix them. Notice I can simply select on a series of curves, and I can actually fit curves in between them. So I can tell what type of curvature, what type of distance I want between these models, and fix them with arcs or splines. Notice I'll give it maybe a little bit more offset, so we have a nice curve going along this. So I'm taking 130 curves, and with one click, simplifying that down to a single arc. So this is a really fast way to clean up curves on our design. But what we might want to do is first get this to a coplanar position. So I'm going to start by actually taking and going into a sketch slightly above the model. So now that we have this selected, Notice that this is below our sketch plane. What I might want to do to make sure all of our curves are located on the same plane, I might want to use our project tool, which is actually going to take these curves that are here and project them up onto our flat surface. So now that they're all located in the same plane, I can again fit curves through them, so I have a nice simplified design, snapping curves through it, or arcs, and simplifying the modeling. Now the only thing that's left for me to do is to project a few more curves onto the model so I can make our circle. This is perfect. What I'm going to do now is simply recreate this gear tooth by first getting rid of everything else. I'm going to hide all of the other curves that are on my design. And you'll notice this is all I really need to recreate this. I can simply snap a 3-point circle to get the basis for our gear, and simply extend all of these curves that are still in the model, extending them one into the other to create all of our corners. This is the profile that I need on the design that I'm going to work with. Now all I need to do is simply drag this to cut it out of our part. This is how easy it is to create, manipulate, and change things in SpaceClaim. And everything on the model, I'm still able to change. I'm able to move things to new positions, pull things larger and smaller, or because we need to have 8 of these, I'll simply take our tooth and pattern it around our circle. And everything that we change, that we want to update, will happen in real time. An extremely fast and flexible way to make changes and edits to the design. And again, you can type in any size or shape for these rounds and make the changes. So I hope you've seen how we quickly were able to use solids and surfaces to create a new model, and also clean up curves to make another design in just a short amount of time. Thank you very much for watching how SpaceClaim works with and edits CMM data.